Hi everyone, if you're just coming in, my name is Julia and I am part of the marketing team at GoECart. Today's topic is how Pokemon Go can drive sales. The way we're going to work the webinar is I will give a brief overview about the app's features and Manish will be providing many great strategies that different businesses can utilize. He's been in the e-commerce space for over 16 years, so he has a lot of valuable knowledge that he can offer from a business and sales perspective. Just a few housekeeping rules. We want to make this webinar as personal as possible. So if you have any questions, whether it has to do with your business or just anything in general, please put your questions in the Q&A section, not the chat section, and that can be done at any time during the webinar. At the end, we will answer as many questions as we can, but if we do not have time for your question, we will be emailing them at the end of the webinar. Manish, before we begin, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Julia. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here. At GoECart, we are always looking to help our clients with unified commerce technologies, but also, more importantly, we want to keep them informed of any major developments that they can take advantage of and help grow their businesses. And Pokemon Go has definitely taken over the gaming world. It has garnered a ton of interest in the professional world. There's something to be said about this gaming app that is actually connected with business and helping businesses. So there's a lot to talk about. I know we have information-packed webinar. We're going to talk about lots of tips, and you're going to share information about the game. So let's get into it. Well, it's no surprise that customers want personalized messaging, the right message to the right person at the right time. It has been around all throughout, however, it's becoming more and more important. In fact, according to a Google study, 67% of the smartphone users, in fact, want messages that are customized to their city or zip code, and 32% of them, in fact, visit stores after looking at location-based ads. So we know that local marketing has a lot of potential, and it really works. That blanket marketing, spray and pray form of marketing and apply that to all demographics is becoming less and less effective. So you might be wondering, how is this related to Pokemon Go? There's a lot of connection there. With 75 million downloads worldwide, and only after 4 weeks, Pokemon Go is still the #1 top grossing app in the U.S., so that's a really big achievement, and the #2 free app. So there's a lot of activity around this app, and we're going to talk more into it.
Great, thank you, Manish. So before we dive deep into the contents of our webinar, I want to learn a little bit about our audience with a poll. So today we'd like to know, how much experience do you have with Pokemon Go? We're going to open this poll and give everyone 1 minute to respond.
So while we're waiting for the people to put in their answers, Julia, I know you have a ton of experience with this app.
Yeah, I do.
You're an expert user. Would you like to share some of that experience?
Sure. So I'm a level 21 Pokemon trainer. So for those that don't know, it's a pretty high level. I actually saw a statistic the other day that, people that are level 20 and above are in the top 3% of U.S. players. So that kind of made me feel good about myself. And I heard about one person that's level 30. He's been in the news quite often, but I think that's pretty, nearly impossible at this point. So it looks like a lot of people, don't know, they know about it, but they don't play it. 47% of people said that they, don't play it, but they know a little bit about it. So, but that's okay, because we're going to be going into a lot of information about Pokemon Go, and we'll be able to, get everyone up to speed so that they can then use the app for their business. So this is what the app looks like for users. So this is actually a real map. It uses the Google Map technology. So it's the same technology as what a GPS would use. So as you walk around on the map, these are real places. This is actually me in New York City, and those blue things that you see, those are called Pokestops, but those are actually businesses or landmarks or something of significance in that location, and we're going to get more into that. But the real takeaway from this is that it's a real map, and it really engages people with, real life locations.
Yeah, and what's really cool about this app is the whole augmented reality angle. Augmented reality is integrating fantasy into the real world. It's changing the way we view the world by adding graphics, sound, and feedback, haptic feedback, into the natural world as it exists. It really blurs the line between what's real and what's computer-generated by enhancing what we see, hear, or feel. And Pokémon Go is, in fact, the first app or game that uses augmented reality, which has become mainstream. Now, there's been lots of apps before, but this has really taken it to the next level. And many pundits, in fact, believe that augmented reality in combination with virtual reality is perhaps the future of retail, because it has such great potential to improve and enhance customer experience, particularly in stores. So on this particular image, you see a Pokemon. It's a Pikachu on a sidewalk. And what the app does is the app uses the camera on your phone to display the real background behind of the street, and it transposes the Pokemon on top, which the players of the app need to catch. So it's really cool. If you haven't already downloaded the app and haven't tried it, I would very highly recommend that you give it a shot, and you'll really be positively impressed with the app.
Yeah, and, Manish, it's funny how we see, 2020 the future. It's 2016. I mean, that's only 4 years away. We think of the future as so far away, but, even though it's the future, it's also reality. Augmented reality is just in its beginning, and we're going to start to see it really come along, in the future. So.
Well, the speed of adoption is shrinking,
right.
And one of the things that the audience on the webinar should know that the number of daily active users for Pokemon Go has already exceeded that of Twitter.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine that Pokemon Go has been around for about 4 weeks, and it has more daily active users than Twitter, and in fact, it's on track to exceed that of Snapchat.
Yep.
So it's not something that people should take it lightly, because I think there's a lot of potential here.
Absolutely. So before we get into the aspects of the game, I just want to remind everybody that if you have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A chat. And if you have any comments, there's a chat box that's separate, and you can make any comments there as well. So what is the objective of Pokemon Go? I'm sure a lot of you have heard the phrase, gotta catch 'em all. Well, that's exactly what the objective of Pokemon is. We want to catch as many different Pokemon as we possibly can. So as players walk around, they find these Pokemon in their local environment, and they can, battle them, if you will. And by battling them, they throw a Pokeball at the Pokemon, and then it can capture it. So for every new Pokemon caught, it becomes displayed in this Pokédex, which is on the right-hand side. And it's almost like a scoreboard to say, this is how many Pokemon I have total in different Pokemon. And people, that's the whole goal, is to fill that up, fill that scoreboard up. So you'll see that I have 100 Pokemon, and there are 149 different Pokemon that I can possibly catch. So I'm getting there, but, I'm still searching for 49, so it's not that easy.
Well, Julia, I have many more Pokemon to catch than you do.
Yeah, you have a lot.
So my deck is a lot more empty than yours.
I think you have like 2 or 3, but that's okay. You'll get there. So yeah, it's not that easy.
So that's very interesting. Now that we know that players walk around trying to catch Pokemon, that's the objective of the game. But let's get into business, because I know that most of our audience here want to figure out how they can utilize this to drive sales and traffic. So this is perhaps one of the easiest strategies to implement. Basically, advertising that Pokemon are either in your business or at your business location or near your business location. And how that helps is when there are Pokemon, so come the Pokemon players to catch them. So that will guarantee to drive traffic to your store, even if it doesn't increase your purchase, but it definitely drives traffic, and you already know how to convert that traffic into sales. So this is one of the easiest strategies.
Yeah, and I've actually personally seen this strategy used everywhere. Like Manish said, it's a very simple strategy to implement. And on the left, that's actually a sign that my library in my hometown put out. And our running joke in the neighborhood is that the library is desperate to get people to come in and read. So just a funny little tidbit there. So in order to catch Pokemon, like I said, we want to fill the Pokédex. So how can players fill the Pokédex? Well, they're going to need certain items to do this. They're going to need Pokeballs and eggs. Pokeballs are meant to capture Pokemon. So you throw it at the Pokemon and you catch the Pokemon, simple. But every time that you throw a Pokeball, it goes away. So as you can imagine, especially players that are really into it, they're going to want to catch a lot of Pokemon. And they're going to need a lot of Pokeballs to do this. So we constantly need to restock and get more and more Pokeballs. On the other hand, we have eggs, and eggs will hatch a random Pokemon, so it doesn't have to be in your physical location, so it actually helps with the Pokédex because it can be a rare Pokemon that you may not have in your area. And to do this, you need to walk, and that's another reason why this game has been driving foot traffic to businesses, because when people have to get up out of their homes, where do they go? So they walk in their neighborhoods, they go to the local diners or local cafes or local stores. So, eggs and Pokeballs are very important for players.
So I know we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, so I want to just remind our participants to put in their questions in the Q&A box.
Yep. So also, to get eggs and Pokeballs, they need to go to Pokestops. Now, I know that this is a brick-and-mortar example. We will get into e-commerce later, so stick around for that. But in order for players to get eggs and Pokeballs, they have to go to Pokestops. Now, these are businesses or locations in the area. Ironically, this is a Pokestop called Pokestop. We thought that was pretty funny. It's a place in Hawaii, but what players would do is they would just swipe at this Pokestop on their screen, and it would give them eggs and Pokeballs. And, I know personally a lot of people in my town, we search and search for different Pokestops to get. And that's the main thing that we do when we play Pokemon is not only are we looking for Pokemon, we're looking for Pokestops.
Right, I think we just got a very interesting question about utilizing Pokemon Go for e-commerce only businesses. So we have lots of great strategies for online only businesses, so please stick around. We're going to get to them very shortly. So strategy number 2 in terms of business strategy, if you're lucky enough to have a Pokestop or be a Pokestop or near one, that's key to advertising. You've got to advertise that a Pokestop is either at your location or it's near one. Why? Because the players come to Pokestop to catch Pokemon. So this is one of the very effective strategy, and Pokestops generally get a lot of traffic. So really advertise it, even if you're not a Pokestop, if you're near one, I think you can really take advantage of this.
Great. So now that we know what a Pokestop is, we need to talk about lure modules. So lure modules attract Pokemon to a Pokestop for 30 minutes. So you'll know that a Pokestop has the lure module activated by this pink confetti-looking stuff that comes over the Pokestop. And, players flock to this. We constantly try to, as a player, I constantly try to find Pokestops that already have lures activated, because then I know that there's a higher chance that a rare Pokemon that I don't already have will be there. So in this particular example, this is a place in Stratford that I went to, and a Pikachu appeared. And now, as you can imagine, it's one of the most popular Pokemon, but it's not, it's pretty rare. So people are constantly excited about finding Pikachus. So this was a good day for me as a player. So, lure modules are very important for players, but that means that they're very important for businesses as well.
So from a business strategy, what businesses can do if they are at a Pokestop or if they have a Pokestop nearby, businesses can actually drop lures. They can purchase and drop lures, which in turn will attract Pokemon, and we know where the Pokemons are, that's where the players go. So if you drop lures, it will attract Pokemon for the next 30 minutes, which will bring a lot of players. So let's get into the economics, because this game has a really interesting in-app purchase angle. So one lure, if you want to buy it individually, will cost you 99 cents, but you can buy them in bulk within the app as well. You can buy them at 168 lures, and the price drops to 60 cents per lure. So think about it. One lure gives you 30 minutes of Pokemon action, and if each lure at a bulk price costs you about 60 cents, so you're looking at about $1.19 per hour of action with Pokemon players. And in this world of super high advertising cost, rising PPC cost, I would challenge you to find Google ads that are lower than $1.20, in fact, and this is guaranteed to bring traffic in. So imagine if you drop a lure, and even if one customer comes in, you've already made a profit. And on the screenshot, you can see that businesses that are large and small are really utilizing this lure. By dropping lures, they're attracting visitors and customers to their store, and companies like Kmart, Los Angeles Zoo, and leveraging social media to announce that and pretty much broadcast that to their audience brings the customers in. And as you can see from this particular slide, now the previous strategy was about a business buying and dropping lure. You can actually reverse that strategy and, in fact, have customer-funded lures. So as you can see in this example, that this establishment is giving $4 off a meal, but the catch is they want that customer to come and drop a lure. So the customer comes in, they drop a lure, show their app and the phone to the establishment, they confirm it, they give them $4 off a meal, and remember, dropping lure means more Pokemon, and more Pokemon means more players to come catch them. So think of it as almost a guaranteed cost per acquisition, almost a CPA model, because you only give $4 off when the customer actually makes a purchase, and any incremental sales that happen as a result of that lure is actually an additional benefit. So it can be very cost effective, and it can be a very powerful strategy.
Absolutely, Manish. So again, we see the questions streaming in. We're definitely going to get to those. If we don't answer them within our slides, we will definitely get to them at the end, so keep those coming. So many of the suggestions that we've given thus far are directly related to Pokestops. So what if your business isn't a Pokestop? What if you're not lucky enough to have a Pokestop on your business? Well, that's why we want to encourage all of you to audit your location. So you can do this by downloading the app just to see the location, or if you know someone that has the app, you can just say, hey, can you come to my store and take a look for me? But just by opening the app, because it's Google Maps, it'll automatically sync to your location, and it'll show you right there what the surrounding area looks like. In this example, there are two Pokestops that are kind of close together. So those Pokestops are probably going to have a high traffic volume because players want to they want to get the most out of their walk, essentially. So if I were a player, I would walk in the direction that the arrow is showing, toward the left, and I would try to get those two Pokestops together. So if you're a business that's right there where the X is, you'd see this, and you'd probably want to put some type of sign or some incentive right there facing the traffic so that you're stopping them right as they get to your business before they make it to their final destination. And, that incentive can be, anything, but Manish is going to talk a little bit about some of those examples. But, the moral is just audit your location and see how you can make the most out of it.
That's a great tip, Julia. Knowing the direction of foot traffic has always been important to retail establishments. And now you've got this Pokemon Go component in the mix. And if you can audit your location, know where the Pokestops are, you know which direction the Pokemon players are headed, and simply putting the sign in the right direction can make a world of difference. Even if you're not a Pokestop or not near one, but people are going past that, two Pokestops, just to remind our audience, there are about 29 million users of Pokemon Go in the U.S. alone. So, and most of them are concentrated in cities, so there's a dense population. So if you're, especially in a large city where there's a lot of Pokestops and a lot of players, you may want to pay attention, but simply changing the direction of the sign from one to the other can make a big difference. So what do you put on the sign, right? So you can be really clever. If you're not a Pokestop, you could potentially become a pit stop, pit stop for players to stop and do some kind of charging in terms of cell phone charging, because as Julia would attest that, and people know that this app, the Pokemon Go app, is notoriously famous for taking up a lot of the cell phone battery.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken walks, and because you have to walk around, you can't just hold an outlet with you. So you're constantly recharging your phone. So if I had a place that allowed me to have an outlet, I would be taking advantage of that.
Right, and number two, you could also be a recharging station in terms of water and supplies, because that's food.
I like getting food on the way too.
Right, and because there's, people are walking, because Pokemon requires people to walk long distances, so there's some benefit for that. And these incentives can be given to customers only, so they come into your establishment, they buy something, and then they can avail of these services for free, or however else you wish to capitalize on the foot traffic. So there's a lot of clever ways you can take advantage, even if you're not a Pokestop or not near one. So I know there were some questions from the audience about what if you're not a Pokestop or not a retail business, how do you take advantage of it? The simple answer is get creative. And we can see from some of this example here, the guy from Best Buy, they're not a Pokestop, but he's having a little fun with it. He's putting up a sign that, hey, in order to catch the Pokemon, you need the new smartphone, and you should come in and exchange or replace that old phone with a new one. And on the left-hand side, you can see a zoo really having a playful angle on Pokemon. They've taken the animal stats and replaced them in the Pokemon lingo to really take advantage of the Pokemon. So it really boils down to acknowledging the game. That's number one. Whether you're brick and mortar, you're online only, or your combination thereof, and aligning your messaging and branding around the interests of the customers with the Pokemon Go. So make that aware, add it to your brand, and that will really be appreciated, especially by the players and also the people that admire the game and want to get into it. So we did something very similar for our own webinar. As you can see, you may or may not have seen it. When you tried to register for the webinar, we added a branding of Pokeball on our website, and this is one such example. I mean, we are not a retail establishment, we are a software company, but you can still take advantage of it by simply acknowledging and adding branding and things that are related to Pokemon to your website and other marketing collateral. So social media, I think most of us are believers of social media by now. It is a very effective strategy for not only engaging customers, but also building a brand. And here is an example where the brand Top Cashback USA is plugging Pokemon Go in their social strategy, by simply engaging with their audience, by asking them simple questions and letting a conversation flow. Here they're asking, hey, tell us which was the weirdest place you've caught a Pokemon so far. And that creates a buzz, it creates conversation, and people get into it, people want to know more. So it can be very effective. On the right-hand side, the whole social media has humanized communication, and this is about acknowledging and supporting the players of the game, being human. So in this case, this group is playing Pokemon at their office, and they want to share an interesting video of how that's happening and getting comments. So there are a lot of very clever ways, and it's not limited to brick-and-mortar locations only.
Right, and keep in mind, some of you might be thinking, well, how effective is this? Well, keep in mind the demographic of the people playing Pokemon Go. A lot of people are in their 20s, they're around my age. I mean, obviously I play, so I can understand from a customer perspective and really understand they do appreciate it. If I see someone posting something about Pokemon, I get excited and I'm like, wow, this business is actually taking interest in my interests. So, you know, give it a shot, see if it works, and go from there.
Right, and I think there might be a lot of myth or people may be misinformed that Pokemon Go is an app for kids. I mean, I have some real stats here that I can share in terms of, you know, almost 78% of the Pokemon players in the U.S. are above the ages of 18.
Yep.
You know, there are 25%, meaning 1 out of 4 players are between ages of 30 and 50. And in fact, there's 6% that are above age of 50 as well.
Yeah.
So
if my mom got a hold of this, she'd be more addicted than me, so I can attest to that.
Right. So this is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a game that people might compare this to MySpace only, limited to teens. This is becoming a mainstream phenomena.
Yeah, I've seen all different age groups, so don't let that stop you.
Right. So this is another great example for perhaps online-only businesses that may not have a Pokestop. We have 2 great examples here. One, for example, taking advantage of branding that Pokemon Go provides and that brand association. So this, there's a bakery that created something called a Pokemon cookie or Pokemon donut that you can see here. So simply having fun. On the right-hand side, it's Pokemon-inspired merchandise. So we've seen stores that sell party supplies that have created inspired items, because with 29 million actual players and their families and friends, there's a pretty large audience to tap into this, at least for the foreseeable future. You could change the name of your product name, just to have a little fun with it, take advantage of it. We've seen everything, you know, from hats, T-shirts, iPhone cases, keychains, mugs, anything you can imagine a Pokemon player might want to buy. You know, you can have a Pokemon angle to it. And just about everything you guys sell, if there are retailers in our audience, there is a Pokemon angle for you.
So we might feel like we are Pokemon Go experts. Not quite. There's still one more aspect of the game that we all need to understand before we can fully utilize the game to its full potential. So these are Poke Gyms, and no, these are not the gyms that you've been avoiding. These are gyms in the game that are places that players can battle. So once you reach level 5, players can pick a team. They pick Team Yellow, which is Instinct, Blue, which is Mystic, or Red, which is Valor. And these players can battle in the gyms to be the gym leader. And once, you know, so I'm Team Mystic, so once I battle a gym and take it over, that gym would become blue. So that color would reflect which team owns it. So, you know, it gets really competitive. I mean, I can tell you so many stories about how gyms have gotten overly competitive, or fun competitive. It seems like Mystic and Valor, Blue and Red, they go head-to-head really often. Those are the main competing teams. Sorry, Team Instinct. But yeah, so it's another aspect of the game that is location-based, so you need to travel to gyms in order to battle with them. So it's another location aspect that, again, gets people walking around and getting out of their homes to do this.
So this is a really interesting, a little more advanced Pokemon Go business strategy. In order to take full advantage of Pokemon Go, you can actually incorporate teams into your marketing efforts, as Julia mentioned. You know, creating special discounts for each team, as you can see. Team Instinct, if that's your favorite, you give them 15% off. You can even create something to the contrary. You know, Team Valor, for example, might have to pay extra. So it really creates a fun rivalry. It really changes the dynamics. And as we know, gyms attract a lot of players. And so it's not limited to just the lure. Gym is a special spot. I know of specific examples where places like GameStop, retail stores, they have actually hosted battles where the winning team gets a great promotion, but the battle creates a sense of camaraderie and get-together, and people come in even at midnight to play. So there's a lot going on here, and if you get to that status, you're close to a gym, or you are a gym, I think you really hit a jackpot in the Pokemon Go world.
Yeah, and you know, keep in mind, because the players have to be level 5 or above, they've been playing the game. So, I mean, of course, in every game there are going to be some people that try it and stop playing and drop off, but my theory is once you get, to level 5 or above, if you're still playing, you're hooked and you like the game. So these are people that aren't just going to come to your business once. These are people that are going to come back and over and over.
Right, and one quick stab there, because a lot of people might be thinking that, hey, most of the Pokemon players are, may not be high spenders, but we have some great stats that about 35% of the Pokemon Go players have annual household income exceeding $100,000. So, that's a pretty good number from a demographic perspective. So you can actually, once you attract these people, you have a great potential to make some sales.
Absolutely. So that's all well and good, but does this actually work? Very valid question. So we actually have we have 2 case studies that are, examples that we think you should emulate, examples of businesses that have fully utilized Pokemon Go. I mean, you can use any one of those examples that we've given to you, and you can use them in individual, but you're going to see much better results if you integrate your strategy and make a strategy out of it. So this example in particular, Rush Street Culver City is a restaurant in California. They offered a 10% discount for people over level 5. They advertised their promotions on their sidewalk, on social media, and the cool thing that they did is they actually renamed their lunch to go special, and their restaurant in general. They called it a Pokemart. So, we talked a little bit before about how, you can get creative and use, change the name. Well, this is a good example of that. Just a general lunch special, renaming it, was pretty cool. They also, they advertised a Pokestop map, and I'm guessing that they had to do this manually through MapQuest. This is through MapQuest, and they probably just dropped pins at all of the locations that they know have Pokestops. That's probably the way they went about doing this. And they advertised it so that anyone that plays Pokemon Go get value from not only their business but the surrounding businesses. So it's kind of bringing all of the Pokestops that are in the area together and saying, make a challenge out of it and go to all of them. So that was really cool that they did. And after all of that, they saw almost $25,000 in sales that are directly related to Pokemon Go. And keep in mind, Pokemon Go hasn't been around all that long, so that's pretty impressive. Without the app, that's $25,000 they wouldn't have had in their pocket. So
it's really, this is a level playing field for small and large businesses, because large business doesn't have any unique advantage on Pokemon Go right now, and I know you have a very interesting case study, a second one that you've spoken with David personally, and this is the housekeeping. We will be making this webinar available on demand later, so you'll be receiving an email with the link and also a link to the survey. So please keep the Q&As coming in. We have some very interesting questions, and please send them in, because we're coming towards the end of our presentation. We'll be taking questions shortly.
So our second case study is Cowitos Ocean Beach Deli. They are a deli also in California, and they did a lot of interesting things as well. They also really integrated Pokemon Go into a marketing strategy. They engaged with customers, just asking customers, what team are you on, showing actual interest in their customers' interests. They dropped lures around Golden Gate Park and around their deli. They offered free charging stations. But the cool thing about this is they offered free charging stations to those on Team Mystic, which is the team that they favor, and it was only for other teams with a purchase. So if I'm Team Mystic, I would have had to go and purchase a coffee or a meal in order to receive the charging station, which I said before is very needed for players. He also sponsored Pokemon Go hunts. So they would go and they would travel the area to find all the cool Pokemon in the surrounding areas. And the last cool thing that they did is they actually used their logo over the Pokeball. And, with doing this, he told me specifically that they did it in such a way that they weren't violating any trademarks because their logo was over enough. So he did make sure of that, which is a very important concern. But yeah, so with all of this, he had a 20% increase in sales. So again, real numbers. These are real success stories. And I did speak to David personally, and he actually told me that, the sales were great, and obviously that was important, but he was more happy with the fact that the whole community came together. He really did witness all of, that area in California coming together, and he was so glad to be a part of it, and I could hear the passion in his voice. So this is real. The people are real, the players are real, and obviously the numbers are real. It works.
So there's been a lot of questions about people wanting to know how can they become a Pokestop. So right now, the Pokestops have been pre-designated by the game developer Niantic or Nintendo. There is no way for you to become a Pokestop. However, there is great news. Niantic, the game developer, has already confirmed that there will soon be what they call sponsored locations. What that means is businesses will be able to request and pay to have their location become a Pokestop. We don't know the details about this and how that will work, but we do know that this is already happening in Japan because McDonald's is the first sponsored location or sponsored Pokestop in Japan. And why Japan? Because the game originally was developed in Japan, and that's where it was first introduced. So we know that it's coming to the U.S., and it's coming very soon. So you really want to get a spring on this one because think of it, it's like 1996 when the domain names were introduced or when they became popular, and the people that were most proactive and that secured the most precious domain names that became so powerful and valuable later. So it's something you want to be on the lookout for and get in on it early, very early, because this is going to catch it's going to catch wildfire because in just 4 weeks or 5 weeks, we have had 75 million downloads, more users than Twitter, and probably more users than Snapchat next week. This is going to be big. Many of you are possibly wondering, and there's a lot of skepticism around this Pokemon Go that, hey, is this a fad? Is this going to go away? All of that true, but right now they have huge amount of engagement, and according to the game developer, Niantic, they're just getting started. There are lots of features in the game that they have yet to unlock. For example, trading Pokemon, battling outside of the gym, adding more Pokemon that can be captured. So Niantic has really thought this through, and they have some big plans up their sleeves to keep this craze going for at least the foreseeable future. And this has become the #1 gaming app in the history of U.S., overtaking Candy Crush Saga. So something to be said about this. And I mean, the biggest takeaway that I'd like to share with our audience before they, before we get into Q&A is really think of this as a new marketing platform, not just as a game that's going to be here or go away, but this is a true gamification engine bringing social, local, mobile all together, providing a new way for businesses to market. And instead of refusing or denying the existence or presence, if they get on it, they get a jump start because there'll be more variations of this kind of technology coming very soon. There'll be more adept, and not to say that there's some great ROI in getting in early and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and another thing to note is that, Pokemon Go is a lesson for marketers. I mean, it is a crazy popular platform, but if you think about it, this is the first time that I've seen in my lifetime that a game has transformed the professional world. It's the first time that I've seen businesses, big and small, just jump on the bandwagon and take advantage of it. And until, Pokemon Go, I haven't seen businesses try to engage with their customers the way that they have with Pokemon Go. So this is a lesson for marketers. It's important to keep track of what your customers like. I mean, like nowadays, the world is so mobile. The world is so interactive. Technology is increasing. So as marketers, you have to get a lot more creative, and you have to make sure that you're putting your customers' needs first, and part of that is taking part in their interests. So this has definitely been a lesson for me, and I hope that it's been a lesson for everyone else too. So with that,
we have some great questions coming in. Yep. Julia, since you're level 21, so I'm going to send this your way.
Sure.
do the businesses that purchase these lures through the app, or do they buy through a corporate business account?
Yeah, so the way that this works is you would have to do it through the app. You don't have to really play, though, so you don't have to be like level 21 or anything. You can just sign into app, give a Gmail or a Google account information, and you can purchase it through, I think it's connected, at least for me, it's connected through my iTunes store. So you would purchase it yourself, or if you're against purchasing it for whatever reason, you can also, have your customer supply the lures, like we said. Those are the two options available as well.
And just to remind everyone, we will be sending a copy of this webinar in on-demand fashion via email. It'll also come with a survey. So if you would please take that survey, we'd appreciate it. And also, if you'd like to share this presentation and this webinar with your friends, family, colleagues, anybody else who might be interested in this topic, we would appreciate that as well. So I know there's a lot of question about the fees associated with becoming a Pokestop in the future.
Yep.
Julia, do you have any guidance? Can you talk anything about, do we know anything about what sort of fees there might be when sponsored locations do become available?
Yeah, so I imagine that sponsored locations are going to be like a sponsored tweet on Twitter. It's going to allow your business to be a Pokestop, but again, it's going to be an advertising fee. So, I mean, my guess is right now there are some businesses that are lucky and others that aren't. So once Niantic starts rolling out sponsored locations, there will probably be revokes where people that have Pokestops as their business will be, it'll be taken away. So, for example, Pokestop that we showed before is a retail location that is a Pokestop. They will probably have to end up paying eventually once sponsored locations roll out. We are going to be keeping track of the updates with Pokemon Go because we're very interested for our merchants, when they can have sponsored locations. So if you email me, my information is on the screen. I will be putting a list together so that once sponsored locations, or once we know anything more of sponsored locations, I'll personally reach out to you.
Right. Or if the businesses want a little help in figuring out the Pokestops near them, if they can send us an email with their address, we'll be very happy to plot a map for them and tell them what the Pokestops are nearby.
Absolutely.
So this is a little bit of a legal question. I'm not sure how well we are equipped to answer this. However, are there any trademark concerns regarding using the names and likeness of Pokemon and the brand Pokemon?
Right. I think with anything, if you're selling something with those trademarks, that's when it does become an issue. I'm sure there are licensing fees and all of that. I can definitely research it and get back to whoever's interested about that information, but I'm sure there's something legal that you have to pay attention to.
Right, right. And, this is still so new. It's only been 4 to 5 weeks. Niantic has been still rolling out this app in other countries, and they're really being fairly relaxed about it because their primary objective is to get the word out. And basically, I haven't heard of anyone having been penalized for using Pokemon Go in terms of using that as a marketing channel or vehicle.
Yeah, if you're using Pokemon Go in artwork, say a social media post or a poster or a sidewalk chalk artwork, whatever, that's probably okay because you're not selling your artwork. But if you're putting the actual logo or something in something that you're selling, that's probably when it's going to be more of an issue if you're using their merchandise to make money. But just as a little bit, of a promotion or whatever, I think that's okay. So far, no one has been penalized for using artwork or social media icons or anything of that sort.
So this is a very interesting question, Julia.
Sure.
It's another one for you.
Of course.
Do you have to be in the area, that physical area, to drop lures, or can you do so from a corporate location on behalf of a store? So think about,
like a marketing agency.
Like a corporate marketing agency or a corporate head office, and they have 20 or 100 stores, and they can drop lures from a central location, or do you have to do it at each location?
At this point in time, you do have to be in the app, and you have to be at the location. So it's very particular where you actually need to walk. I mean, that's the whole reason why traffic has been crazy, is because players need to actually walk to those exact locations. However, once sponsored locations become a thing, those Pokestops will, be monitored, from a central location because people are paying for them. So once you're paying for a sponsored location, my guess, and I can't speak on behalf of Niantic, but my guess is they would assume that you want to use lures and that you can drop lures and pay for lures as part of your package with sponsored locations.
And I believe that Niantic's approach, Pokemon Go, is very similar to what Pinterest did. They started with individual consumer accounts, and a little while later did they introduce the business accounts. So I think Niantic is figuring this out.
Yeah.
And
still so new.
Yeah, but I think it's coming. There's the one very interesting question here, Julia, another
Sure.
one for you, which is there any negative of having your businesses swamped by bodies rather than money-spending customers?
That's a good one. So what I would say is, if your business is being swamped with people, you can, use strategies that say you have to make a purchase. So, I have seen signs, and they're kind of funny, so that's why I'm laughing, but I have seen signs saying Pokemon Go for paying customers only. I have seen stuff like that. I found that, when I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh, it's a cranky business owner. But if you embrace it, a lot of times you're probably going to be able to turn that foot traffic, turn those bodies into paying customers. So that's where those creative ideas come into play, because if you're talking with your customers and engaging with your customers and say, hey, you can use an outlet for if you pay, if you buy something, then you're turning those bodies into paying customers.
I think there's a very clever way to drop lures and having a strategy that you might want to drop lures when during a slow period.
Yeah.
When you don't have the highest traffic, because
it'll bring people to you.
Right, which is what GameStop did at many of their locations, that basically they started dropping lures when the traffic was low, and that would bring people in during the off-peak hours,
right,
as opposed to trying to crowd an already peak location and peak time.
Right, as long as people are in the area. If it's a time where everyone's in school or work and, it's dead completely and there are no one playing, maybe that's not the best idea, because if no one's playing, then no one's going to come to you. But if it's a time that people are playing, but maybe, it's a slow time for you, that would probably be optimal.
Right. So another great question, do you get any analytics from Pokemon Go, meaning how many people visit a certain Pokemon stop, or any form of demographic information or any other stats that you can get? Is that information available? So
that's something that, it's going to be different per location. So it would have to be something built into, each Pokestop. The way that I know businesses have been tracking it is they've been, using promotions related to Pokemon Go and seeing, does it actually convert. So if you don't really do any promotions that are relevant to Pokemon Go, you really don't know how much of the traffic is because of the app. But if you're giving promotions and saying, 10% off if you're this team, or, if you show me your app, then I'll give you a free drink or something, then you can keep track of the conversions. So not necessarily keeping track of the traffic overall, but keeping track of the conversions, which is what business owners want anyway.
Right. I mean, part of the whole Niantic strategy that we can glean is really they've intentionally taken the commercial side and minimize that, because consumers would not have adopted this app to the degree that they did if it was designed to really drive people for purely commercial purposes, because customers don't have to, that information is not available. Customers feel more comfortable utilizing the app because it's very democratic. It's not, with a very commercial purpose.
Yeah, they're not getting ads pushed to their phone.
Right. There's no push notification on Pokemon Go, which is very rare for an app that's #1. So that's really, I know we are coming towards the end of our webinar, so we might take just a couple more questions. But please send, if you have any last-minute questions, please send them, type them into the Q&A section.
I did see one question that I think is extremely interesting that I want to make sure we mention. So we did have a question come in that says, what should you do if you want to push online sales? So we did talk a little bit about, how to get creative and all of that, and there were a lot of great suggestions for businesses getting creative, but again, this tactic is very much skewed toward brick and mortar. However, what you could do is get creative, and perhaps your online business, does a post on Facebook, say, and you show a picture of you playing Pokemon Go and say, use this coupon code for, 10% off or 20% off, and the coupon code could be, Pokemon, to show that, you're showing solidarity with your consumers, and you're turning that into sales using an online promotion. So there are still ways that you can be creative with an online business. It might take a little bit of, hard thinking, but I know that, we're all smart business people. We can all figure it out and make it work for our own businesses.
Any additional information on demographic, male, female? Julia, that's one of the questions that we know about so far.
Sure. So you'd think that Pokemon, it's mostly male, probably, male teenagers. That is not the case. The game is actually 63% female and 37% male. So there are a lot of girls like me playing it. That was one of my thoughts when I started playing the app was I'm going to be like the only girl, but that's not true. When I walked in my neighborhood and saw everyone playing, there was just as many, females as there were males, surprisingly, which was, fun for me. So it's not just, a male for kids thing. I mean, I'm an adult in my, 20s, I'm a female, and I play. So, you can't really limit it to a specific demographic.
Right. I mean, going back to that same, we have another question about isn't Pokemon just for kids, and I'll probably take this one.
Sure.
I mean, people thought Facebook was just for kids when it was introduced first.
Yeah, my mom's on it more than I am.
So it really, it's not to be disguised, and there are the early adopters, and then there's the mainstream. And Pokemon Go, with the connectivity that we have with the mobile applications, things are moving much faster, and they're more penetrating the marketing world significantly faster. As I said earlier, Pokemon Go having more users than Twitter. I mean, who would imagine? 5 weeks old app has more daily active users, more time spent within the app. Yes, the longevity of it yet to be determined. However, it is a mistake. It's just like people thinking Snapchat was for kids, and now look at the Snapchat progression that now it's entering mainstream.
Yeah, and businesses are using Snapchat now as well.
Yeah, so it is about being progressive. If you want to be a progressive marketer, you will embrace these new marketing platforms and technologies, learn quickly, learn early when it's very cost effective. Your mistakes won't cost you much, but it will prepare you for the next generation of marketing to come. So I know we are almost out of time, so we're going to call it a wrap, but this presentation will be available, will be sent via on-demand link along with a survey. We would greatly appreciate if you would share it with colleagues, friends, professionals that you feel would benefit from this, and we appreciate your feedback. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julia. And for everyone else, please have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.